Welcome to the Lan-Scene. I'm Luci Solis, and this is a program dedicated to the people of our city. I wanted to create a place for us to have authentic conversations about the inspired stories, opportunities, and resources available right here in our town. As someone who has spent a portion of my life in poverty, I was able to change my trajectory through the help and the resources available right here in our community. I am proof that when we unify, our city and its people can rise together. Welcome, Capital City. This is Luci with the Lan-Scene, and I'm here with Justin Sheehan, the director of the Lansing Promise. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you, Luci.
So let's just dive right into it. So tell me, what is the Lansing Promise?
Sure. Lansing Promise is something we call a place-based scholarship for every kid that lives in schools within the Lansing School District boundaries. Or what we say is it started as a place-based scholarship. Always has been, always will be. But it's really a collection of folks through both boards and an entire community that believe in the inherent worth of every young person in this city. And so we invest accordingly. So
when you see the people in the city, so are they part of the school district? How are they connected with the students?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, at any given time, we've got connections with, or we need to be working with teachers, students, family, parents, generally. I think when we talk about government, we talk about nonprofit, business leaders, and community members. In other words, and similar even to your intro, right? We rise together, right? Or we all fall apart, right? If every young person in this city is worth what we believe they're worth, right? That inherent worth, that God-given worth, that inability to do anything but excellence, then we as a community have a responsibility to walk with them and to ensure that they have the resources, tools, and support necessary to build those brighter futures.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about your tools and resources.
Sure. We mentioned a scholarship, and a scholarship is an important piece, right? It reduces financial barriers to post-secondary success, right? Which really means it encourages success after high school. But reality is our young people need to get to graduation first.
Absolutely.
Right? And even when they get there, right, they also have to know what they're able to do. More importantly, their why. Right? Their purpose. What do they put here on earth to do? Now I'm 40 years old and I'm slowly figuring that out. So at 16, 17, 18, do they have it all figured out? No. But do they have an idea of where they could go? Yes. And do they understand there's a community that wants to walk with them? Yes. And I think more importantly, do they understand that finances don't necessarily have to be a barrier for that? Yeah. Now, as you may be aware, there was this pandemic that took place for a couple of years. Despite that, we still saw hundreds of scholars set foot on college campus, right? When the numbers went down across the country, and our numbers, they didn't go up, but we're already back to pre-pandemic levels. And we're seeing kids continue to internalize the fact that they are, in fact, capable, they are worthy, and they are incredibly talented. Our kids are posting nation-leading persistence and retention rates year after year. We open the door for more kids to go to school in Lansing, and they not only are walking through that door, but they're doing it with success and with excellence, which is incredibly encouraging. So we're beginning to see that expectation change, right? That was always the goal. But we also know something that we've learned in the last decade, that after $5 million of scholarship investment, leveraging millions more in state and federal aid, it ain't just about the money, right? It's about the community that's walking with them. Right? It's about food, clothes, and shelter. It's about mental health, emotional and relational health. It's about mentoring. It's about community centers. It's about advocates one way or the other. It's about folks willing to change status quo or question status quo, right? Because sometimes where we've landed in this city, and actually really in this country, isn't great for everybody. And I only say that because the Promise is a scholarship program. We're very much apolitical. Right? But our goal is to short circuit poverty, right? Because education leads to a strong career. A strong career leads to what we call family raising money, right? That's food, clothes, and shelter, right? It by definition alleviates homelessness. It by definition alleviates food scarcity, right? When folks have a career they can really build on, and a job is good. What happens, that job is in a career that's of actual interest. Right? Then kids are actually fed, they are filled, and they get to move forward. And sadly, I think most folks my age and older may or may not have a career that fills them, right?
Yes, I agree.
And so I think what we're doing is not only current work now, but this is generational work. We're actually working for our kids' right, in this step. Because every step a kid takes, the next generation gets to take another step.
Okay, so can I just back up for a second? When you talk about the scholarships, is it just for certain colleges here in Lansing? Can they do a trade with that? How does the scholarship work for them?
It's a great question. Right now, it's Lansing Community College, a full ride to Lansing Community College. It's all books, all fees, all tuition.
That is so wonderful.
Yeah, it's good news. That's new. That's new. We couldn't give a full ride before. It's Michigan State University, Olivet College, or Davenport University at $10,000 for the first 2 years. So that's $5,000 a year. And Davenport and Olivet are actually coming with some matching dollars. And we're in conversation with MSU in the future to potentially do the same. And then actually the good news is we finally were able to open up to skilled trades. Now, skilled trades has always been going on at LCC. Their campus, especially their West campus, is unbelievable.
Absolutely.
Right? So when skilled trades are happening, that's great. What we couldn't always help with, though, was the course fees. So the good news is, because we can now help with course fees, we can be doing a lot more, not only with skilled trades, with the Fire and Police Academy work, but even into additional skilled trades programs like Mikey 23, like IBEW, like plumbers and pipe fitters, like any HVAC work, right? When it comes to construction and skilled trades, we're now just getting our foot in the door of how we can help our kids. And if that means it's a journeyman's program they don't need to pay, then can we buy their tools? Or if it's a program they need to sit in a class for, great. Then we'll help with class. I
think it's great. I mean, I think this is wonderful. And I love how you talked about those who struggle, right? I struggled with food insecurity. A lot of us have struggled. I wasn't able to afford college or a lot of things at certain times in my life because I had to put food on the table. I was a single mom.
That's right.
I know there's a lot of people in that community like that. And it sounds like you're helping the disadvantaged communities. So how do you get that information out to those disadvantaged communities?
Lucy, you might just hit the $1 million question. Here's what we know. 10 years ago, we were told Promise is the best kept secret in the city. I came on at the end of 2015, and our goal was to make it less than the best kept secret in the city. We get between 60 and 75% of the graduating class every year applying for the Promise. So we know that there are some pieces working. There's some saturation. But Lucy, what you just laid out to me, I think is what our work is going to really need to focus on over the next few years, right? We're just making sure that the parents, the caregivers, the single mamas, right, who are looking their baby in the eye and they're working hard just to make sure there's food on the table, that these mamas can know, and that all the parents and caregivers can know that there is a scholarship waiting for their kids. Because I'm not going to talk about something with my kids that I can't provide them. That's just reality as a father, right? And I can only give what I got,
exactly.
Right? So if I'm having a rough go, if I'm having some deep down depression times, which, as you know, I've had, right? I'm not as good of a dad. I'm not as present, and I certainly can't be thinking about the future when I'm trying to figure out right now.
Exactly.
Right, and what we want our young people to be able to understand, and really our parents of our future scholars to be able to understand, that if your child lives in Lansing, goes to a school within the Lansing School District boundaries, that's public, private, home, charter, or GED, and they graduate, then they are eligible for the Promise at one of those institutions. Now, to our parents of kindergartners, we got more programs coming by the time they're graduating. But even if we didn't, we'll be walking with them, giving them career exploration opportunities, college visits. They'll be meeting folks who look like them in various career fields over the next 12 years. They'll be understanding how money works and how saving of those funds works, and actually how every kid in our district up through 8th grade right now, and adding year after year, has a children's savings account or a college savings account in their name through the Lansing Save program, right?
Yeah, I work with Lansing Save program.
Exactly right. So we've got more than 8,000 children's savings accounts specifically set aside for success after high school. That money pairs with, doesn't get impacted by, pairs with the Promise. So now all of a sudden we can have scholarship funds for our kids. Every kid can have an associate's degree if they want one. They can have a certificate if they want one. It doesn't mean we're going to give them one. It means they got to work for it, right? I mean, there's something we talk about often, I think, around the post-secondary work and even nationally. Are we making clear that this is actually hard work for our kids? Right. Now, that's not necessarily in the Promise space. That's in the everywhere space. I hear a lot of folks complain about student debt, which is high. It's astronomically high. But the student debt issue is not seen as an investment in their future. It's seen as only a burden because folks were told, you go to school, you get a good job, you pay your bills, right? Not learning or understanding that it is what you make it. right? And there are no jobs just waiting for you, right? You got to make your own way. And I think we have often set kids up for failure in that way. And when I say we, I just mean the community as a whole, to say, well, if you do these 3 things, everything's going to be okay, right? But what we know is you're going to have to hustle. You're going to fail, and failure is going to sharpen you. You're going to have to get up, and you have to do it again, right? And when you fall down, you got to get up. When I fall down, I got to get up. When you fall down, I need to help you up, and vice versa, right? Because that's called community. And I think something that we're continuing to push at the Promise more and more is that value and importance of relationships in community, right? Because success, there is no vacuum in which success after high school happens. There is education in classroom work. Of course there is, right? There is skilled trades, earn while you learn work. But there's also relationships and life, right? And parents and siblings and cousins and neighbors and friends, and transportation and healthcare and rent. All those factors affect GPAs.
Absolutely.
And we don't always think through that, or I think give enough credit to the fact that there's always a lot of life going on.
It's life, exactly.
In all of our lives, right? But especially in our kids' lives, in our scholars' lives. And I think what we're going to be doing over the next few years is not only communicating that to our students currently, to our future students, to make sure the expectation is accurate, that they know there's resources available, but also communicate to the parents in the district. Because the reality is we've got 10,000 kids in the district. That's 10,000 future scholars as far as I'm concerned, right? So as we plan our numbers for that, what we also have to ensure is that our parents know what's available for their kids. And so I think we're going to be working with the district, with the city, with nonprofit organizations, and actually we're building something called the Parent Council for that exact reason. Sorry, I'm running out of breath.
No, that's okay. So can I interrupt you for a question? So you talked about the debt, right? My daughter graduated like 2 years ago, and she doesn't want to go to college. She does not want a debt.
Sure.
I was a single mom.
No.
They don't have this, big savings account, saved for them. So what happens if a student graduates from school and has a gap year or waits a couple of years and then decides to go? Is that still something you offer?
Yeah.
Do they have to be right out of high school?
It's a great question. So it used to be 1 year. Now it's a 2-year window to apply for the scholarship.
Okay.
After graduation. And then from there, they have 4 years to actually use it.
Okay.
So we do build in some gap years. Now, and here's the other reality. When we get a call from a kid who says, I've been out for 3 years, I was working, I finally figured out what I want to do, can I go? Of course you can go. We're going to make it work, right? So if folks listening to this have that situation where they know someone, have them give us a call or drop us an email and we'll figure it out. What we want the majority of our students to do is keep moving forward in whatever that means. Right. If that means take a gap year, okay, take a gap year.
Some of us taking a few.
That's right. Don't take a gap decade.
Right.
Because number one, we can't afford to project for that to figure out what that's going to cost.
Right.
But number two, this is also about trajectory. Right. So taking a couple years, okay. But moving forward is critical. It's critical. And what we always tell our students is it's okay to learn what you don't want to do. That's okay. But then you got to move again. Right. So you take a step, you say, that's not really the work I want to do. Adjust and take the next step.
Okay.
Right? We can't just fall off and say, this is too hard. Of course it's hard.
Well, speaking of being hard, so I'm thinking the criteria. Is there like a certain GPA? What is the criteria to apply for this?
Live, attend, and graduate.
Okay, because you're going to get some kids that just aren't the best at school, right? They're not good at testing. They're not good, but they're great with their hands and want to do trade.
And I would say I was one of those.
Yeah,
I just didn't know what the trades were.
Yeah, me as well. I didn't know them because that's what I was thinking of these kids. Yeah. Sometimes it's intimidating to apply for scholarships because you think you have to meet a certain GPA or you have to write an essay.
Sure.
And if they want to go, like you said, into HVAC or pipe fitting. Is that communicated to them so they understand that the scholarship, you don't have to, write this long essay and you don't have to have a 4.0?
So it's a good question. So is it communicated by our counselors, pathfinders, and college advisors? Yes. Do our kids always hear it? I don't know. I actually don't know.
I never really listened to my counselor.
No.
Yeah,
Should I have? Yes.
Yeah, me as well. Yeah.
I mean, what's the rule of marketing, right? It takes 7 times, right? So kids need to be hearing this. But I mean, our goal in this, right, is that we have spoken to kids every year from kindergarten through 12th grade about the promise and about their futures. To the degree that by the time I walk into the senior year, my goal is then to say, we already know about the promise. And then I say, tell me about the promise and tell me what you're going to do with it. And then they tell me and I leave. And that'll be my entire speech. right? That's really our goal. We want kids to be so inundated and so absorbed into this thing that the expectation of success after high school isn't even a question. The question isn't if I go somewhere and do something. It's when I go, where am I going to go, and what am I going to learn? Which maybe sounds like semantics, but that's fundamentally a shift in how we as a community think.
So one of the things I've come across in the community that worries me are the ones from the disadvantaged neighborhoods and households that have dropped out of school or have gotten suspended or don't have the best home life and not thinking that's there. Is there a way, me being a part of the community, or is there a way we can help to get that out to those disadvantaged households? If they're not in school, is there a mailing? Is it on social media? I'm just trying to think how we reach.
I think it's going to be by every way possible. Does social media work for some? Do mailings work for some? We actually used to do mailings, and sometimes we'd get about half of them back, right? Because reality is we got folks who are moving a lot.
I think it's good, too, how you'd mentioned that you work with nonprofits, because a lot of nonprofits meet that group of kids.
That's right.
Because a lot of them feel lost.
That's exactly right. Well, and
losing hope.
And you just nailed it, Lucy. Right. The reality is, and this is from a colleague of mine by the name of Jose Moore, who runs All the Above Hip Hop Academy. He's worked with kids for many years.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's right. And he said, Justin, hopelessness breeds recklessness. Right. And so we see gun violence and we see gun deaths. Right. We see young men getting in trouble and getting in and out of things. The reality is every child is going to get into something. Every young man is going to get into something. What we need are more positive men in the community doing something about it. All right, Dr. Carl Taylor, a phenomenal sociology professor at MSU, foremost authority in youth and gang culture in the entire country, said very clearly to me when I was on Baker Street some 15 years ago, no, maybe 17 years ago now, he said, Justin, every act of a young man is condoned by an older man. So blessed by is exampled by is set for expectation of. And so there are a ton of organizations doing incredible work in the city right now today. And what we as a community have the privilege of doing is to support them. Right? There are a lot of good men in this city right now working to set modes and models and to help mold the hearts and minds of young men in this city. What we as a community don't often do well is support those organizations for all kinds of reasons. For all kinds of reasons, because number one, small organizations, especially grassroots organizations, especially Black and Brown-led organizations, historically and across the country, are underfunded for the work that they're doing. And the reality is that's why we work with several incredible organizations, because I know, Justin, white boy, 40-year-old, can walk into a classroom and I can talk to kids and they'll know I care about them by the time they're done. What I can't explain to them is how to have an experience and navigate the life as a Black or brown male. That's not my experience. Right? You can walk in and speak to an experience that I have not had. And that's critically important because that's what real representation is.
Well, that's what kids want to see. Someone who looks like them.
Come on. That's right. Yeah. Because if you can see it, you can be it. Right? And so representation really, really matters. Not this DEI. I don't want to discount DEI, but as soon as it got acronymed, right, it became a buzz term. What we want is real representation, right, and real equity.
I agree. I remember I went to Fairview, and they had police and fire. Everett used to have this thing called the Fun Machine.
Sure.
I don't know if you remember that. And they would have police and fire at the school. And I was like, how cool. But I never saw a female, nor did I ever see anybody look like me. So I never thought I could be one. Same with school teachers. Most of my school teachers never looked like me growing up. So representation is very, very impactful.
It really, really matters. And we need to be clear, too, that it's also not tokenism.
Exactly.
Right? Because tokenism is actually the reverse of that. Tokenism is actually damning. Right? But this concept of true representation means that when a young person sees someone that looks like them or has their same cultural experience. In my experience, I've learned that folks rolling out of the same neighborhood have infinitely more in common, typically, right, than those who don't. Right? So at least if it's geographical, and that's what's powerful actually about the Lansing Promise, because we don't raise soft kids in Lansing, right? Every kid I've met in Lansing, they're dope and they're tough. And I love it. My kids included. We don't raise soft kids in our house, right? They're not allowed to be, right? But it turns out in order for kids to be successful, they can't be soft because this world is not soft, right? And that doesn't mean we're harsh or cruel or mean, but it does mean we're building resilient children in this city because we all have risk factors, all of us.
Right. And that's what I was just going to say. Some of them are I don't know if soft, but are delicate.
Yeah, it's
on their home life.
That's
you
a
know
good
what I
word.
mean? Like I was just delivering meals on Baker Street last weekend, and there were some homes I came across that
For sure.
some kids are definitely delicate, and
For sure.
this would be great information.
That's right. That's right. Well, and I think, the question that we have to really ask is not only can the communication be made. I've been a part of committees and councils for the last 20 plus years in this city and in this county talking about this kind of work, right? It's one thing for a resource to be available. It's another thing for a resource to be communicated to, right? So a family learns about a resource. But it is a third thing, and actually I think arguably the most important, for someone to actually feel engaged and to either feel ownership or as though they are worthy of those resources.
Exactly.
And I think I don't know what that looks like yet. I mean, we've had a lot of folks who have said, I wasn't going to go to school except for the promise. That's beautiful. That's beautiful, right? But you asked a really important question, which is, what about the kids that dropped out already? What about those we missed, right? The young men who have been gunned down in this city in the last 2 years, they should have all been Promise Scholars. We missed every single one of them. We messed that up. That's a hard pill to swallow. That's not we're the saviors. We're going to come in and really be some kind of salvation or savior as a scholarship program. But it is to say that we had a role to play to ensure that hope was springing forth. That the opportunity and success after high school was an expectation. And we didn't get there yet. Now, are there counselors and teachers and parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and community members and folks in the faith community and everywhere in between working their tails off to reach these kids? Of course there are.
Absolutely.
Of course
we
there
have
are.
a great community.
And we as a community need to continue, if we're not those folks on the ground, to continue to ask, how can we help? Right? And not assume that we know how we can help.
Right.
And that's been an important thing through a lot of the work that's happened over the last couple of years. It's not the question of, I know the answer to this. It's I, Justin Sheehan, need to ask, I don't know the answer to this, but how can I help? What part can I do?
Absolutely. And to create that comfort for the kids to say, to come to you or to come to whoever, to create that. Yeah, I think that's important.
That's right.
Wow. I think it's awesome. I came from a disadvantaged household, and in my experience, there's more disadvantages, more disadvantaged households than, I don't know, as society deems normal. I don't know. I was raised in a non-traditional household, and I raised my kids in a non-traditional household. And I feel when I'm out there in the community, that's what we serve. And I feel these kids, this resource is great for them, right? And delivering meals, I'm not like picking on one neighborhood, but as I'm throughout the city and you come across this would be great information to share with them and to let them know, because they do ask.
That's right.
And then sometimes they just don't know the right questions or the right person or the right resources to go to.
That's right. Or, and again, even if they've heard them, they either haven't heard them enough, or sometimes we haven't heard things from a trusted source, right? Because it's one thing.
And it takes time to build trust.
That's exactly right. And trust is earned only. It's one thing to have a brochure that has some information, which is not a bad thing. That's a very good thing, because that's one piece of the puzzle. But reality is trusted relationships. Those are what change things, right? Word of mouth, one parent saying to another parent, this is where we got our food last week. Because there's also a lot of feelings of either heartache or frustration or shame or concern or a lack of pride or feeling too much pride around a lot of the topics that affect educational success. Right? When we talk about literacy rates or the comfort with reading generally, I think often we've been told, well, they're just X, Y, and Z rates are low, and then X, Y, and Z rates are low, and therefore we aren't sure what to do, and poverty is really tough. Let's reverse that. Poverty is really tough. Poverty does take with it a lot of things that it does not deserve to take, right? It does take with it hope often. I think often people in poverty don't see themselves as valuable as they are. I
totally agree.
I think often people don't see the strengths they do bring to the table.
Yeah, when you talk about reading, I struggled as reading. I still do at times. Sometimes I catch myself, and I was embarrassed to read out loud. And because I struggled with that, I had to, I have special lessons. You don't feel smart enough to get a scholarship. You were embarrassed to even ask, like, if I can't even read in class, how am I ever going to qualify for a scholarship?
That's right.
So how do we help? I know they have the Pathfinders, which are phenomenal. Is that right? Pathfinder? Yeah. They are phenomenal. And I know they work closely with the kids. That would, I would assume, be a resource for those students that struggle with the reading to let them know that this is available.
That's right. And the district's doing a lot when it comes to literacy work that isn't fully talked about, right? For lots of reasons.
Right. Well, it was going back to the shame thing, right? I was too shameful to ask that. Right. So how do we pick out those kids?
That's a good question. I mean,
do you know what I mean?
One, teachers tend to know.
That's what I was thinking, with the Pathfinders.
And so that's really important. I think one of the questions, though, that we're going to be asking sort of across the city is what could we as a community do to ensure that our parents, number one, feel supported, right? We can only give what we got. Right. I can tell you there are many nights that I don't read to my kids because I'm exhausted.
Yes, I understand.
And I can tell you that there have been times where I felt a great deal of shame for that.
I feel guilty.
Right. So what happens if you're working 3 jobs and trying to make ends meet?
Then trying to put school on top of that.
Come on, that's right.
That's
right. So,
been there.
So the question isn't whether our parents are working hard and our caregivers are working hard. The question is, how do we as a community rally around and support? Right. And so it's a question we're going to be asking teachers this year. How could we as a community support? It's a question we're going to be asking the administrators. Right. Ben Schuldner, superintendent. Phenomenal. He has phenomenal. A heart for these kids.
Yes,
right?
He does.
The folks in the district, the teachers, the counselors, everyone in between, working their tails off for our kids. Anyone that says they aren't, they don't know. They don't know. Does that mean they're perfect? No. Everyone would be the first to say, oh, well, they're not perfect. I'm not perfect. We're not perfect. Sure.
But we're putting the effort in.
It's time to, it's exactly right. And it's time to recognize who's got what going already and how do we as a community come together to ensure that our future Promise scholars, all 10,000 of them, have the resources, tools, and support necessary to build that brighter future for themselves, for their family, and for their community. Right? We have a vested interest in their success. But Justin, aren't you guys a scholarship program? Yeah.
But you're more than that.
But we're a scholarship program who, when it was started a decade ago, made a decision that we were going to take an active role in the success of our future scholars. And so it's not wait and see. It's a go and get. Now, that said, we're real lean and mean in staffing, right? So this is all about partnerships, right? It's working with the city and the district and the chamber and nonprofit organizations across the city and community partners and parents and anyone else that believes like we believe.
So let me ask you a question. So how would one get involved? Let's say they want to help with the students. Can they volunteer? Can they get on a committee? I mean, how does that work?
So we've got more and more opportunities coming up daily.
Okay.
So they could just go to lansingpromise.org and drop us a line, give us a call, drop us an email at info@lansingpromise.org and let us know where your heart's at. And here's the coolest part. We know a whole lot of organizations, and we're working with the district. So if there's
I hear Lansing Promise everywhere.
That's good.
All the time when I'm out in the community. Yeah.
That's a good thing.
That is a good thing.
Because it's not me. I mean, that's the nice part, right? Like, this is community, right? This is what started in 2001, actually, with the concept of the Hope Scholarship, which we now operate and run, had turned into the Lansing Promise 10 years ago, right? We've got 1,700 kids who've already set foot on a college campus. 1,700.
That's
more than 600 have already completed. More than 60,000 credits earned. Like, these babies are not playing around. Right? When I say they're nation leading, they are nation leading in retention and persistence rates out of Lansing. That doesn't surprise me, by the way. That's our expectation. Right? Our kids are incredibly talented in this city. The question is, have we as adults done enough to say that we were a part of that? Right? That's part of our challenge, I think, in a lot of ways. We've got 10 years down with the Promise. We're going to get 50 more at least, right? Which is 2 generations from now. So we should be worrying about our scholars' kids and almost grandkids. That's why we're doing this work, right? We talk about generational transformation, and it's not to say that, again, that we are the only piece of it. We are a piece of a much larger puzzle that takes grassroots organizations and takes real effort and takes folks willing to be uncomfortable and to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because none of us have all the answers. None of us do.
No. Wow. This is I can't tell you, this is just phenomenal. So just to summarize, all kids 2 years after school, after graduation, they can apply.
That's right.
Any field at the, Lansing Community College,
LCC, MSU, Olivet, Davenport, and Skilled Trades. And they've got 4 years to use it.
4 years to use it. And then your contact information again.
Lansingpromise.org. It's the easiest way to get to see us.
All right. I cannot thank you enough.
Right.
Thank you so much for all that you do.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to the Lan-Scene. Music for the Lan-Scene provided by Joystack. For more information, go to joystack.org. To listen to this episode and others on demand, visit lccconnect.org. If you have a story to share or would like to be a guest on the show, let me know. I'm Luci, and thanks once again, Capital City. It means so much to me to have the support of our community. Remember, when unified, our city and its people can rise together.